Okay, so if we look at this first question here, they're asking to describe a sequence of transformations that maps ABC. So we're starting with ABC and it's going to go to DEF. So the first thing I usually like to start with is I look here and I say to myself, if I go in order of the letters, A, then B, then C, do you see that that goes in a clockwise order? Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the image triangle. So D to E to F. Do you see that? Oops, that's an arrow. Also goes in a clockwise order. So if that goes in a clockwise order, what I call the orientation, it goes in a clockwise order here and here. That means that there's no reflections. Okay, so no line reflections. Line reflections are the only thing that change the orientation. So in other words, if I was going clockwise here, I'd be going in the opposite direction down here, which we don't have. Okay, so that's why we don't have any reflections. So that's usually the first thing I kind of like to test. All right, now I kind of do see, and hopefully you as well will see, that we have A and it will correspond with D. So A is going to go to D. Then B is going to go to E. B is going to go to E. And then lastly, C is going to go to F. So I don't know if you can visualize that this thing kind of tips. So B kind of tips on its side to E. C kind of will go down here. And D will go down here. So that's a rotation. Now the way I kind of sort of fake it is it's much better to do if you have a ruler, which I kind of don't at this moment, but I'm going to pick any vertex. So like I'm going to pick B. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line to the origin, just like that. And then B corresponds with E, right? They're both in the same spot. So now I'm going to go from the origin out to E. And again, a straight line is usually helpful. And you can see here that I just made a 90-degree angle. So what that tells me is that I have a 90-degree rotation. Now you have to say two things. What it's about. So in this case, it's about the origin, meaning we're rotating about this point. Kind of think of like a pinwheel, right? This is the fixed point. Or even, oh my gosh, the Ferris wheel, right? So a Ferris wheel, right? This is the fixed point, and then these are the spokes that rotate, okay? So when we rotate about the origin, we're saying that that's the fixed point. All right, so we're rotating about the origin, but we also have to say in what direction. So in a clockwise direction. And there's your answer. Okay, I probably should have said this in the last question, that these take a lot of visualization and a lot of trial and error and trying to sort of manipulate, in this case, this quadrilateral and to make it look like this, okay? And it's just a lot of practice. I've tried to find little tricks. There aren't too many of them, so sorry for that. But what I do notice is if I could take this guy and if I could just flip it over the x-axis, it may make it a little bit easier for me to see what to do next. So let me explain what I mean. Here we go. Okay, so like that. Now, I really honestly, I feel uncomfortable, not that you're going to care that much, but you really shouldn't call this R, O, C, and K. But since this is the prime, that's the end, this is the beginning, this is sort of in the middle. So I don't want to call this double prime, but anyway, this is just sort of an in-between to get from here to here. And so you can see that I flipped this bottom quadrilateral up. And now if I could just take this thing and flip it over again, but over the y-axis, then everything will be more in the right direction, if you understand what I mean. All right, so let me draw you a picture of that. Okay, so you see how that flipped over? And this is the R, this is the O, this is the C, and this is the K. Okay? And now all I have to do is take that blue quadrilateral and let me shift it, and then I've got everything that I need. Okay, so let me just start to write a couple of things down. So the first thing I did, I took the black quadrilateral down here, right? And I reflected it. So I reflect over the x-axis, right? That's what I did first. Then to get from the red quadrilateral to the blue quadrilateral, I reflected over the y-axis. And then now, last but not least, I want to move this quadrilateral in blue, and let's see how much I want to move it. So I'm just going to pick any point. So I'm going to pick C. And I need to move it 2 to the left, up 1. Okay, let's say I chose O. 2 to the left, up 1. Okay, so that's technically a translation. If you forget the word translation, you can just say I moved it 2 to the left, up 1. But I'm going to get fancy math with you. So translate 2 left and 1 up. And that would be your answer. All right, so the next question. So if you look at what I did, I drew my orientation little arrows here, and this is going clockwise, and so is this. So if the orientation stays the same, it's not a reflection, okay? Unless one of these answer choices had 2 line reflections in it, then it could be an answer, okay? But if I read through these, and if you take a minute and you read through these, like choice 2 only has 1 line reflection. Choice 4 only has 1 line reflection. So in this case then, it could not be choice 2 and it could not be choice 4, because if the orientation stays the same, you can't have 1 line reflection. Okay, all right, so we're down to choice 1 or we're down to choice 3. Okay, so let's see. I want to start with looking at the fact that we're starting with triangle ABC. So we're starting with this one and we're going to that one. So let's look at what choice 1 says. It says a counterclockwise rotation of 90 degrees about the origin. So I like to draw something like that so you can kind of see that a little bit better. Okay, so that's going to be B prime. Now I'm going to just kind of fake it a little bit from here. Well, not really fake it, but so I see that from B to C, I go 1, 2, 3 units. So I'm going to do the same thing. And if I'm rotating, I think that I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 units this way. So 1, 2, 3, there would be my C prime. Okay, so there's my side. And then I'm going to look at the distance between B and A, and I see that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So that would be what your triangle looks like if I rotate it 90 degrees counterclockwise. Okay, now if you read the second part of this, it says followed by a translation, which means just moving 8 units to the right. So let's see if I shift this B prime. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Look, it goes to E. And if you see here, B does correspond to E. Now let's see if A goes to D in 8 spots. So we're right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're all good. So then we know that our answer choice is choice 1. Okay, so let's look at this one. So it says, which sequence of transformations will map triangle ABD? So I think it might be helpful. I'm going to kind of highlight this so that you can see. Here's triangle ABD. And what they want that triangle to get mapped onto is triangle CDB. So this one right here, CDB. Okay. So for choice 1, if I reflect over the line L, this is what I would get. Okay, use your imagination. I'm not the world's best drawer in the world. Okay, then it says followed by a rotation of 180 degrees about point E. Now remember, point E is here. So if I rotate 180 degrees, this triangle right here, if I rotate it 180 degrees, watch, this is going to come around 180 degrees to D. That's why I put an A here. And then B, if I rotate it 180 degrees, will come over to here. And D, if I rotate it 180 degrees, will go over to here. This triangle right here is not matching the one that they want, which is triangle CDB. And let me see if I can highlight that. This one right here, CDB. Okay, so that doesn't match. So it's definitely not going to be choice 1. All right, so let's look at choice 2. So choice 2 says a reflection over the line L, okay, which is what I've got right here. And then it wants me to reflect over the line M. Okay, so let me do this in a different color so that you can see it. So A, if I reflect A over line M, it's going to be down here, right? So it's going to go to here, this spot right there. Okay, and then B, if I reflect it over line M, will go down here. And D, if I reflect it in line M, it's going to come up here, right? So that'd be up here. And if I connect those, voila. Do you see that that matches my highlighted triangle that I have right there? Okay, so my answer choice then would be choice 2. All right, well, hopefully you remember this from one of the last videos. It says which transformation will map ABC onto DEC. And if we just draw a line and reflect, you'll see that A will go to D. And we should see that B will go to E. Okay, so it is a line reflection. Also remember, what I like to do is I like to start with the orientation. This is counterclockwise and this is clockwise. So if I have a change in orientation, right? Remember, if I have a change in orientation, that equals a reflection. Okay? Alrighty, so the next one, let's see, we have congruent triangles and we're mapping ABC onto DEF. So this is the starter and this is the end. All right, so if I look at ABC, that's clockwise. If I look at DEF, that is also clockwise. So then I would venture to guess that I would not have one single line reflection, okay? So I'm going to try to come up with a better way. So I'm just going to take for a second and I'm going to look at A, that comes first, and D comes first. So if I look at D and A, and if I'm going to go from A to D, if it's not a reflection, I usually like to try a rotation. So you know how I tend to go. I do this little cheater method, straight line, use a ruler, and then straight line to D, And look, that's definitely a 90-degree angle. So you may be able to see that without me having to do that little trick. It's just something that works for my brain because I don't always see it. But if you do take this triangle and you rotate it 90 degrees, A will go to D, B will go to E, and C will go to F. Okay, so now remember, if you're going to say that something is a rotation, you have to say how much. So in this case, it's a rotation of 90 degrees. You have to say in what direction. So in this case, counterclockwise. Talking and spelling at the same time is not easy. And then you also have to say about what point. So in this case, we're going about the origin. Okay, so if I go back to that Ferris wheel or that pinwheel, this is the fixed point. This is the point that doesn't move. Okay, and that is the point of rotation. Okay, so if I look at this one, we've got DOG and it's congruent to triangle CAT. And I don't think that I'm actually going to draw my little curly Q thingies because I think it'll get a little too annoying in here. But look, DOG, that's clockwise. And then CAT is counterclockwise. So my orientation changes. So remember, if that orientation changes, then it's likely that we're going to have a line reflection. All right, so since I'm starting with DOG and I want to get it to CAT, I think what I might do is I might try just reflecting over the y-axis first. Okay, so then that way they're both on the right-hand side of the y-axis. So I'm going to go here. That'll be O prime. D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would go over here. And G, oops. Let me do this. There we go. G will go right here. So that'll be G prime, D prime. There we go. Okay, so you can see that I reflected over the y-axis. Now, let's just make sure that what I have is going to line up as far as the letters are concerned. Okay, so for example, I have D prime, O prime, G prime. So D corresponds with C. D corresponds with C. That's good. Okay, O corresponds with A. O corresponds with A. And lastly, G and T and G and T also correspond. Okay, so I'm good to go here. So I reflected over the y-axis. Now all I have to do is move this thing up and it'll slide right into place. Let's figure out how much I need to move it up. So pick any point. So I'm going to pick D prime here. I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 straight up, right? Okay. So your answer would be a reflection in the y-axis and a translation up 5 units. Okay, last one. So again, I'm not going to draw the little circly thingies because I think that this is a little bit small. So I'm going to go A to B to C. So that's clockwise. And then D to E to F. That's also clockwise. So since the orientation doesn't change, most likely I will not have a line reflection. Okay? All right, so then I like to try to maybe figure out some rotation or some kind of a translation is usually the way I like to go. So I'm going to read, and we're starting with, oops, thought I had my pointer. We're starting with triangle ABC. So we're starting with this one, and it's got to go to this guy. So this thing, to me, seems to tip on its side, okay? So in other words, I want to take A, and I want to go and put it somewhere over here, and B somewhere over here, and C somewhere over here. Okay, so I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees this way, clockwise. Okay, so let's see how I do. So B is going to go here. I'll call that B prime for right now. Now I know the distance between B and C is 2 units. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up 2 units right here. That's C prime. And then lastly, the distance between B and A is 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and there will be my A prime. Okay? And then there is my triangle after I've rotated it 90 degrees clockwise. Okay? And then the last thing we got to look at is we have to make sure our corresponding angles are in the correct spot. So for example, A is first here, D is first here. Well, look, A goes to D. If I move it down 1, 2, 3, 4, and then over to the right one. Then B goes to E. So B, 1, 2, 3, 4, and to the right one. And the same thing would happen with C prime and F. Okay, so let's write it up. And there would be your answer. Rotation of 90 degrees clockwise about the origin, then a translation down 4 units and right 1.